Well, welcome to the show, and it's been another really busy week. In fact, we'll see that with our Going, Going, Gone segment and some of the sales we've had this week. But they're hard work, but they're happening. Now, we've got Isabel Redmond, Leader of the Opposition, joining us today. I'm really looking forward to that, and I'm sure you will be as well. And SA's finest this week is at Harndorf, some acreage. Of course, those with horses, make sure you're listening in because that's a really good property. We're live and interactive, so make sure that you get on the phones or email us and we'll answer any questions you've got at the end of the show. Well, as I said, some great sales in the past week, and also this segment, if you're a renter, be sure you stay tuned because we're going to cover tenant application process, and there's some good tips in there for you. Now, for the inside story on the low confidence of buyers at the moment, let's go and have a look what's out in the streets.
It seems as though potential buyers across the nation are suffering from a lack of confidence when it comes to spending money, particularly towards purchasing real estate. A survey released last week has indicated that the Australian population is more likely to be pessimistic than optimistic when approaching the possibility of becoming homeowners. The index of sentiment fell to its lowest in 2 years, to only 92.8 points, indicating an 18% fall in the past 12 months. If consumers are uneasy about the overall state of the economy, they will be less likely to spend money on high commitment items such as homes. This has seen an outstanding rise in savings as households act to deleverage and pay outstanding debt. RP data reports that a major factor in the confidence of buyers is due to this increased tendency for consumers to save rather than spend. This has seen confidence levels drop to points that haven't been seen since the global financial crisis. During March this year, household savings were recorded at 11.5%, the highest levels since the mid-1980s. These results have come as no surprise to many of the public, some even suggesting that it's time incentives were introduced to boost confidence levels.
I guess money is an issue at the moment for everybody, so interest rates will definitely be a benefit or an incentive.
Yeah, I guess if the government brings back more initiatives and offers more cash, it'll sort of bring them back into the market.
It is anticipated that the population will recommence spending on housing once they become more confident with the Australian and global economy. But at this stage, it is expected that buyer confidence will remain relatively low and may drop even lower once the full effect of the carbon tax is felt.
Now, that's a report from our new correspondent, Tanya, and a great report it was. And isn't it amazing how the people in the community actually know what's going on, and it doesn't matter what people tell us, we know it, and intuitively in your stomach you know what's happening. So from our point of view, we're better off to just talk about it, work through it, and let's get amongst it. Confidence is down a bit, but the sales are still happening, as you'll see a bit later. Now, joining us for a bit of an in-depth chat, a bit of an exclusive, we have Isabel Redmond, who is the Leader of the Opposition. Welcome, Isabel.
Thank you, Anthony. It's nice to see you. Where's your tag on your forehead? You had a...
Oh, the stitches.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just had them out, so I had them out last night, and it's all looking nice now, isn't it? The doctor said that it would fit into my wrinkles really well.
Oh, right. It's good for the image and the haircut.
Absolutely, yeah. Anyway, we'd better get on with some... Isabel, how's it going? Do you like being in opposition?
No, I'd much rather be in government, but I enjoyed the job more than I anticipated I would. It's, you know, full of interesting and diverse things than meeting people all around the state. So, like you, I get a feel for what's happening out there. Okay,
tell me about what's happening in the state. Are we A, B or C? Would we be any different under a Liberal government?
Well, I think we would be different under a Liberal government. We'd have much different priorities in terms of where we spend the money. And at the moment, of course, this government's made us the highest taxing state in the nation. And with those high taxes, that includes things like stamp duty and land tax. That affects property investment, and it means that there's less property really available for renters, because particularly with the land tax, the renting market becomes very tight when people start moving out of the state with their investments going elsewhere because of the land tax regime.
Isabel, you've been circulating in the urban development. You presented a big paper to a conference?
I spoke at, they have a regular lunch, and I delivered what you'd, I suppose, call a headland speech at their lunch in June, canvassing a range of issues, mostly focused on the City of Adelaide and trying to build some incentives into the stamp duties and land tax regimes so that we can encourage people to live in the square mile of Adelaide, because we believe that there's a lot of room and a lot of capacity for us to redevelop, and also talking about the need to have more flexibility in the way we deal with heritage buildings inside the city.
Now, before, the last time we had you on Toop TV, remind me if this is correct, was just before the election?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
We ended up with a policy on your land tax.
Exactly.
Okay, which ended up, before the election, actually having a change in land tax. Okay.
Yep.
So maybe that was something to do with that, but who knows?
Hopefully.
Would there be more concessions in the next election? Can we expect to hear more concessions on all of the imposts, which includes stamp duty, registration transfers, all licences? I mean, you name it, we've got it in the building industry and in the real estate industry. Where do you sit on that?
Absolutely. We will come out with some quite definitive policies before the election. We know in general terms that land tax is a major issue, stamp duty is a major issue. Removing, for instance, the first homeowners grant, which may have a short-term stimulating effect, but in the long term, we believe that will have a detrimental effect on the property market, and that, I think, needs to be re-looked at, but the government at the moment is intent on removing it.
So could you afford to just completely get rid of land tax for us?
No, in fact, I can't even afford to just get rid of the multiple holdings, which is whereby the mechanism that allows them to add together everyone's value of property, and you go up into the highest bracket. Just doing that would take something like $160 million. We can't do it in a single hit, but it is something that we are conscious of, and we believe we can sort of make some adjustments so that, for instance, a developer holding property for a subdivision or a strata corporation or a high-rise development may be able to have some release from land tax liability pending the sale and so on.
Are you aware that anecdotally we're hearing and having seen it in action, people selling the big holders of property, selling here, down, like scaling down what they're holding here, and they're buying up in other states wholly and solely because of the land tax? Are you aware of that?
Absolutely aware of it, and I've had people come to me who are selling their entire property portfolios in South Australia because of that very reason.
Residential, commercial, or?
Residential, and of course that then, Kevin Foley, when he was Treasurer, always said, oh, well, land tax is only something paid by rich so-and-sos. The reality is that if you don't have people who are holding property, whether it be commercial or residential, there's no properties to rent for the young couples wanting to rent until they can afford to buy, and there's no commercial properties. Nearly every business in this state rents its property.
Isabel, we'll go to Going, Going, Gone in a sec, and then we'll be back. I've got a few more questions for you, so let's go and see what's sold.
The past week has seen a positive rise in Toop&Toop's property sales, giving a much needed confidence boost to those considering selling their homes or for those with properties currently on the market. Len Allington had a run of success when two of his properties sold this week. This one in Tea Tree Gully for $520,000 and this Mediterranean-style villa in Greenwith for $320,000. While potential buyers are said to be losing confidence, it certainly wasn't evident when one wise investor snapped up this stylish townhome in highly sought-after George Street, Norwood for $810,000. Other prominent sales for the week include 4 Pine Street, Parkside, which Becky Neal sold for $675,000, and this lovely home in Brooklyn Park for $400,000. After negotiations post-auction, this home in Lower Mitcham sold for $550,000, and Sally Turner sold this home in lovely Port Wollonga for $468,000. Showing that hills living is continuing to prove desirable, Arabella sold this stunning acreage in Lobethal for $822,500.
So despite all of the news that you hear, the reason we want the Going, Going, Gone segment in here so you can see these are actual sales and they are definitely happening, but we are working harder for them because it's a confidence issue. But there's plenty of buyers, they're just reluctant to buy. So if you are a buyer, you couldn't pick a better time than now. Get on with it because it's a great time to be purchasing. We were talking about stamp duty with Isabel a few moments ago. There's less stamp duty as well. So if you're buying and selling on the same market, it makes no difference. All we can say is just let's get on with life. Now let's go behind the blinds and look at some great property.